Greetings, everybody. I think we'll just give it another minute or two and see if we get Micah and Ellie in here.
Sean, Micah emailed me late this afternoon and said he's not feeling well, so he will not be here.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update. We'll still give Ellie, we'll give her one more minute and then
That's good.
get started. Perfect.
Nice.
All right then, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and call to order this January 4th, 2022 Missoula Consolidated Planning Board meeting. Happy New Year and welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get things rolling here with the roll call, please, Donna.
Thank you. Micah Sewell did let me know that he could not be here. Andy Mefford. Andy Mefford's absent. Josh Schrader.
Here.
Josh Schrader is present. Dave Loomis. I know he's here.
And he's unmuted.
Let's go ahead and mark Dave in.
I would agree.
Dave Loomis is here. Toon Pham.
Here.
Toon Pham is present. Ellie Costello.
Present.
Ellie Costello is present. Sierra Farmer.
Present.
Sierra Farmer is present. Shane Morrissey.
Present.
Shane Morrissey is present. Sean McCoy.
Here.
Sean McCoy is present. Mr. Chair, there are 6 regular members and 1 alternate. Would you like to appoint Ms. Farmer as a regular voting member tonight?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, so again, Happy New Year, everybody. We'll kick things off as normal here with the next agenda item, approval of the minutes from December 7th, 2021. Ideally, everybody had a moment to look them over. I tragically was stuck out on the highway for that one. So ideally, you guys got to look at it and review it. And if somebody could make a motion, that would be great.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, but was that Toon? I missed that. Shane? Seconded by Shane. And we'll just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition. Approval is unanimous. And moving on to the next agenda item is our public comment period. And for folks that are joining us public-wise, this is an opportunity for you to comment on anything coming up on the screen for folks that are watching this on MCAT or YouTube or however you're streaming this. There's information, and I'll also read out for those that may be attending by phone. If you are calling in to make comments or you need to call in, the cell phone users can use 1-253-215-8782. And landline users can use 1-888-475-4499. Webinar ID is 842-9399-6424. Password is 999636. And then if you want to press *9 to raise your hand to be recognized to make a comment, or *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you are watching via whatever modem and you call in on your phone, there is typically a delay and an echo. So please try and mute the device that you're watching the meeting on so that we can just hear you. And if there's public comment, please be patient because the online version is a little slower than real life. So we'll go ahead and take a little minute here and see if we get any calls or comments in the queue here.
Start video.
It keeps saying cannot start video in the corner. I'll see if I can hear her.
Sean, can you hear this? This is Dave Loomis. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dave.
Okay,
We have no video for you is all.
I
Well, I fixed his audio.
can't seem to fix the audio, but I can't seem to fix the video, so I'm just listening as we go.
Okay. Hey, Dave, would you try raising your hand to see if we can see that in order to make sure we can catch on? Okay. Yep.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. Well, now we know at least you can make comments. And
Okay, thanks a lot, Sean.
yes, always love your input. Are we getting anything? I'm trying to change screens here. We got anything in the queue? I lost mine.
I don't see anyone in the attendee list with a hand up, so I think we're good.
Great. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on. I think tonight's going to be a quiet night. Anyway. Sorry, I was just seeing who chimed in there. Yeah, I think we'll just move on from the public comment period, not seeing anybody getting on here at the moment. We can always go back if somebody jumps in here in the last second. So next agenda item is staff announcements. We have a new board member with us tonight, Sierra Farmer, has been appointed to the board, and we were hoping maybe just a little introduction from you, Sierra, and a little about yourself and maybe who is appointing you or if you're with the city or county.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, my name's Sierra Farmer. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, I'm the city city appointed member, and let's see, I grew up in Sealy Lake, so born and raised in Missoula County. Went to college here at the University of Montana and got my bachelor's degree, and then just recently finished my master's in public administration. I work for the DNRC for the state, for Montana Department of Natural Resources. I'm the Trust Lands Program Manager for the Southwestern Land Office. Most recently, prior to that, I was the Environmental Planner for the Forest Management Bureau. So that's my interest. I have two kiddos here that I'm raising on the west side. They both go to Lowell School. And my husband's a city firefighter for the Missoula Fire Department. Yeah, and I'm just really interested in this position just because of all the growth I've seen in Missoula in my 36 years. It's changed a lot. I still refer to the area of town where 93 Stop and Go was as that's the Trempers area. But anyway, so I still, yeah, I love Missoula. I want to be a part of this board just to help grow it in a positive way. So thanks for having me.
Nice. Well, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Okay, and then next we had a staff update from Bailey Minich of the Missoula County Community and Planning Services. She's just going to give us a little verbal update tonight.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I apologize. I've been out of town for the last 2 weeks over Christmas, so I wasn't able to get my normal monthly memo out to you all ahead of time. Trying to get everything else done while I was gone. So I was just going to give you an update based off of my last memo, which would have been before your December meeting, just kind of give you an update of projects from there that you've heard. The December 7th meeting, you did hear the Missoula County Housing Action Plan. That, just so you know, is scheduled on January 13th for the commissioners to hold a public hearing to consider the resolution of intent to adopt. And then hopefully, if that goes forward, it's scheduled right now tentatively for February 10th for the final resolution to adopt that housing plan. The long-range transportation plan, it was approved by the city council back in November. It's taken a little time to get to the county, but that was approved by the commissioners for resolution of intent on December 9th. And hopefully that will be on the February 10th resolution to adopt by the county commissioners as well. There was the Schilling Dearborn rezone that was heard by you all on just November 2nd. That one was approved by the city council on November 29th. Also the same night, November 29th, the city council did approve their recreational marijuana ordinance. And that was actually, just so you guys know, approved 6-4. It's always kind of interesting to me when I get split votes or just to see what happens. So I'm not sure what happened during the meeting, but it was approved 6-4. And then the Canyon Gates Ole's plan variation, you guys heard that on November 16th. It was heard on December 9th by the county commissioners, and they ended up postponing that to January 13th. Commissioner Slotnick had to leave, and so he had asked if they would postpone it so he could be part of that discussion, and the applicant agreed to that. So that'll be heard on January 13th. And then finally, the last thing was the consideration of the West Broadway Gateway Master Plan with the city. And that was actually approved for adoption by City Council on December 13th. So as far as I can tell, I think that one went into effect. That's it for now. I know coming up, there's not a whole lot. Actually, I don't even think we have anything scheduled for the next January meeting, but definitely February and March, just so you guys are aware, you'll have some special presentations coming for the county zoning code update. And then I believe the March 1st meeting is tentatively the first actual public hearing for that. So just so you know, those are coming up. And then I believe the city has a major subdivision that I think they're looking at the second meeting in February, if I'm correct, Donna. I think that'll be coming. But just plan definitely February, March, we could have some longer meetings just with that county zoning code update. It's always hard to say what's going to happen with that one. So, and then there's always other projects circling around. So it'll be a fun spring.
Nice, great. That was nice to hear about some of the things I missed there during hunting season. All right, moving along. Next agenda item is our public hearing section. And we are going to be taking a look at the Bonner West Major Subdivision, and presenting on behalf of the county tonight again is Bailey. And again, for those of you that maybe not know Bailey, she's with the Missoula County Community and Planning Services. And I forgot to ask earlier, Bailey, is there somebody with the representatives online today? Tonight?
Yes. Yep. Joe Dennert from IMEG there. He's waving. Hey, you guys, he's here. And then I'm assuming it's hard to see everybody in the little conference room. I think that's Dan Foltz over there.
Dan and Mike Heisey are with us as well, y'all. So we have 3 folks. Well, me and Dan from IMEG, and then Mike Heisey, the developer, on the call tonight.
Great. All right. Awesome. Take it away, Bailey.
Okay, I'm gonna hopefully share my screen here, and hopefully you guys can see that. Oh, I froze. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm not seeing
Oh.
anything. There we go. There we
Okay.
I see it now, Bailey.
Oh, sweet. Okay, it all froze, and then I lost my little picture of everybody. It's been a while since I've had to share. Let me make my screen bigger. Sorry, here, so I can see you guys. It's always kind of weird when we share these things. Okay, hopefully that works. Okay, so you guys can see my screen. Yay. Whew. Okay, so this is the Bonner West subdivision, and I turned my laser pointer on just for ease later as we go. But so we will go, hopefully click, goes to the next, yay. Okay, so here is our property location. There's multiple addresses because there's a lot of existing houses out here. But it's this property right here that's kind of outlined in this green and black box. It is along Highway 200 East and White House Lane. It's approximately 0.6 miles northeast of the intersection of Highway 200 and Highway 10. I'm sure a lot of us drive right past this and have no idea that they're all on one lot out there if you go use the Blackfoot. So it is zoned CR1, which is residential zone, and there's a small portion, if you can kind of see it right here, is kind of pink color. That small portion is zoned CI2, which is heavy industrial. There's no houses on that. It's just part of the lots from how it was zoned. The land use designation. So the 2019 Missoula area land use element, which is an amendment to the 2016 Missoula County Growth Policy, designates the property as neighborhood residential, which has a residential density of 8 units per acre or greater. And then obviously the part that's zone industrial has a heavy industrial center designation, which has building sizes ranging from, they call moderate as 20,000 square feet to very large, over 150,000 square feet. Again, it's like a tiny little portion of the property that I'll show in a minute. There's no buildings or anything on there, but it's interesting to know. So here is just kind of a snapshot of the proposed preliminary plat. I just kind of like to put that on as a visual for you guys. Obviously, there's bigger copies in the application packet. But this is kind of it in a nutshell. There's 19 proposed lots, residential lots on 8.33 acres. It's split by Highway 200. So you can see Highway 200 goes right through here. So there are 3 proposed lots and 1 common area located on, and I generally will refer to this south and north, although I know it's at an angle, but just for ease of everyone, on the south side of Highway 200. And then there are 16 lots, 1 common area, and the private park that's located on the north side between White House Lane, which is over here, and Cold Smoke Avenue, which is off the plat. That's not actually part of the subdivision, but it's just right here to the side. Each of the lots have an existing home on them, constructed around 1925 as part of the Bonner Mill site development. There's an existing shared multi-user septic system, which will remain within the proposed common area, and all the lots are served by the Bonner Homes West LLC water supply. There is an existing alley that's located behind the homes on both sides of the highway, providing primary access to the lots. So the lots do front on the highway, but they do not have driveways or anything like that off of onto Highway 200. It's outside of map floodplain. There's no slopes. It's generally flat. There is a slight rise in elevation towards Highway 200 on the southern property line from the alley, very slight. So I'm going to try to hit the highlights of the review criteria and the impacts to local services. Obviously, there's a lot in my staff report. It is a major subdivision, so I did go into a lot more detail, but I'm going to hopefully just hit the highlights and not keep you guys here forever. The lot sizes range between around 24,000 square feet to 7,600-ish square feet. The proposed density of the subdivision is 2.27 dwellings per acre. As I said, it's zoned CR1, which has a maximum residential density of 8 dwelling units per acre. Based on the minimum lot area for the CR1 zoning, the proposed lots are permitted for single-family dwellings, and some actually could qualify for 2-family dwellings based on their overall lot size to just in the future. They're all, as far as I know, they're all single-family out there. None of them are currently duplexes. Let's see, the subdivision site is located within the urban area of Missoula County. And I'll get into that here as part of a second with the roads. That's the big portion here. Actually, that's my next section. So direct access, as I said, is provided by 3 roads: Highway 200, White House Lane, and Cold Smoke Avenue. And here I'm actually going to I'll go back so you guys can look at the plat if that helps while I'm talking. Highway 200 is considered an on-site access road, while White House Lane and Cold Smoke Avenue are considered off-site access roads. And we do have different standards in our subdivision regulations for on-site versus off-site. The existing number of vehicle trips per day is estimated at 152 trips. It's not expected to increase because, as I said, each lot already has its own single family dwelling on it. Highway 200 is state maintained paved roadway. It's in a 60-foot wide public right of way. MDT did comment that they would not be pursuing acquiring the underlying right of way as fee simple property at this time as a condition of subdivision approval. And I wanted to point that out because obviously, even during our pre-apps, that was one of the first things that I looked at going, oh, it's an easement for Highway 200. Shouldn't it be right of way or actually dedicated road? And MDT said, no, they don't want it as fee property right now. So it is an easement. It is not actually dedicated right of way at this time. Mountain Line bus system does currently use the proposed common area that's on the south side of the highway for turnaround purposes. As I said, Cold Smoke Avenue is considered an offsite road since it's not part of the subdivision. So they are proposing some access easement agreements that's been drafted and will be recorded as part of it for connection for emergency use and for the driveway. It kind of comes up behind this common area and there is kind of a connection existing for that for the homeowners. So since the subdivision falls within the urban area, for our standards, all roads are required to have a conventional curb, gutter, and boulevard sidewalk compliant with there's a table and a section in our subdivision regulations. And I mention this because that is the section that the 4 variances that are being requested reference that section. And I'll get into that more detail here in a minute. But just so you know, that's why, is because this area, even though it's outside of Missoula, it is in our urban area for road standards. And so that's where all of those standards are coming from. Pedestrian facilities. So major subdivisions within the urban area are required to provide pedestrian sidewalk facilities per our subdivision regulations. The standards require the sidewalks to be a minimum of 5 feet wide on both sides of the road with a 7-foot wide minimum boulevard. And that's for within the urban area with a land use designation of 8 dwelling units per acre or greater and fewer than 40 lots proposed. So it hits that trigger. There are existing sidewalks out here on the site. However, they are less than 5 feet in width. And so that's the other variances are to the sidewalk standards, both to Highway 200 and White House Lane. And I'll again get into that here in a minute. Let's see. The subdivision regulations require non-motorized facilities to be located adjacent to the street and to be extended across the entire street frontage. Currently, the existing sidewalk along the north side of Highway 200 ends approximately 100 feet from the edge of the subject property near the intersection with Cold Smoke Avenue. And the sidewalk on the south side ends at the eastern property line of lot 19, just down here. It goes right about to here. In the common area. And so the applicant is requesting variances to the requirement to not extend the sidewalk to the end of that property line. So I'll get into that here in a second as well. We did receive comment from the health department recommending the applicant work with MDT to extend the sidewalks to provide a clear, safe pedestrian route. We did also receive comment from the MPO recommending coordination with Mountain Line for any transit stop improvements. Surprisingly enough, the comment I got from Mountain Line was that they had no comment. So there's that. The MPO also recommended extending the sidewalks on the north side of Highway 200 along the proposed common area. And they actually requested an additional 5 feet of public access easement to be required on both sides of Highway 200 for future bike paths and multimodal functions. That's not something that I'm proposing or recommending at this time based off of the comments, no comment from MDT, but that is something that's interested for future connectivity. Let's see, the lots, as I said, they are connected to an existing multi-user and shared wastewater system. They also are on an existing public water supply system that does have capacity to meet their needs. One unique comment or condition that I do have, the sewer easement you can kind of see it right here, along the front of lot 4 is actually only shown at 15 feet and our standard is 20 feet. So that is one of the requirements I have, is that easement should be a minimum of 20 feet. Since this is a major subdivision, they are required to provide parkland dedication that's based off of a percentage of the area of the lots. So there's 18 lots that are within the half-acre size or smaller, and that's 11% of those. And then there's one lot that's between a half an acre and acre, so it falls within 7.5% requirement. And so the total parkland dedication required is basically half an acre, 0.5. They're proposing over here, this common area P is to be a 0.24 acre private park. And then the remaining 0.26 acres of parkland dedication would be provided as a cash in lieu dedication at the time of final plat. The intent of the private park is for open space available to all residents and would be dedicated and maintained by the HOA that would be created with the proposed subdivision. We do feel that the park does comply with the standards for the parkland dedication under 3.10.7, since it is bordered by streets or paths on 3 sides. It is a site, it's small, but it is a site for some active recreation, and it does preserve the only available area within the subdivision that does not contain any existing infrastructure at this time. As far as the fire, it is located within Missoula Rural Fire District. It's approximately 1 mile from the new fire station that's just down the road. They did complete a fire hazard assessment and it returned a score of 22, which indicates a low risk for fire hazard on this property. They will utilize an existing fire suppression system serving the entire Bonner Mill site. And that system does contain a large well and large cistern located on the hill to the east of the subdivision. And there are existing water main supply lines and existing hydrants that can serve the site. And I do have a proposed condition for any plans for installation of additional hydrants would be approved by the Missoula Rural Fire District prior to final plat approval. Comment was received from Missoula Rural Fire in support of the proposed fire suppression system prior to submittal of the application, subdivision application, and we haven't received any additional comments after that. As far as the natural environment section, we did get an interesting comment from the SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, because all of these structures are greater than 50 years old. So they stated that a cultural resource inventory was not warranted at this time. However, they have more concerns or just want to be involved more if there's any alteration or demolition of any structures. So we are proposing a condition that would go within the covenants language that any alteration or demolition of the existing residences, the SHPO office would be contacted prior to that, and they would work with that in that situation. It is within the Blackfoot River corridor, so obviously there's a wide range of animal species that are known to be in the area, but we actually didn't get any comments from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Again, the main reason is this is an existing subdivision. It's built out. It's been this way for years. So really there's no anticipated greater impacts anticipated. So I think I'm on to my variances here. Yeah. So there are 4, as I mentioned, 4 variances, and I've got some pictures to try to help explain these, because generally I am recommending approval of all of them other than one. And that is the extension of the sidewalks along the entire frontage of the subdivision on the north side of Highway 200. And so I'll go into I'll kind of just go through them all here. So this is the section here that we're talking about with this variance. So I am recommending denial of the variance. They're requesting to deviate from the standard due to requirements of the sidewalk construction within MDT right-of-way. And let's see. Yeah, there's potentially some issues with topography, in this area. However, without the sidewalk extension, really the proposed park in this area is supposed to be able to be accessed by all residents within the subdivision. That's its intent, right? To meet the Parkland dedication requirements, it does need to have a safe access to it. So without that sidewalk extension, the park wouldn't be able to be adequately accessed by all residents within the subdivision. Additionally, one of our variance criteria is that the variance would not violate our zoning resolution or conflict with our growth policy. And based off of our 2019 land use element that does state all roads within this neighborhood residential designation should provide non-motorized facilities. And also our growth policy does have goals and objectives promoting healthy communities and the expansion and maintenance of trails, pathways, and sidewalks. There was some discussion in there about the handrail because of the slopes. There is an existing handrail out here if you've been out on that side. And if that would potentially trigger like a setback violation or be involved with the zoning regulations. But a handrail would not trigger a setback requirements. It would be similar to fences, which we do allow to go on to right up to a property line, but they would need a building permit if that is required. Granting the variance could potentially increase public cost, and that would be once the subdivision's approved. So if any further expansion, if the variance was approved at this time, and so they did not extend the sidewalk, and the county comes back and say, we get a lot of comments saying, we really want a sidewalk here, we really want the sidewalk extended, then at that time, the county or MDT has to pay for that. And that would be an increase to public cost at that time. The general taxpayer then has to pay for that instead of the developer. Yeah, so I think that's that one. Okay, so the second one, it's the same, a variance to the same standard, but it would to not extend the sidewalk along the south portion of Highway 200 in this area. And that, so again, this proposed common area is currently used by the Mountain Line bus system as a turnaround. They're requesting to deviate from the standard as it would not serve to increase safety or flow for non-motorized traffic, since there's no additional residents or commercial uses past this common area. And actually I found that really the installation of the sidewalk, it could increase the potential for pedestrian and vehicle conflicts because this is really used as the Mountain Line bus turnaround. And again, it's not going to any new residential homes. There's no existing infrastructure on this side in the remaining portion of the highway. So I am recommending approval of this variance request. And then finally, the last two sections are really to the sidewalk widths themselves, and that there's no variances. So as I said, the urban area requires a minimum 5-foot wide sidewalk and a 7-foot wide boulevard. So the existing sidewalk along White House Lane, which is this specific variance we're talking about, is currently less than 5 feet, and there's no boulevard between the sidewalk and the adjacent street. So they're asking to deviate from the standard since it would require reconstruction of the entire length of the sidewalk. And there are existing mature trees that are located between the sidewalk and the existing residential homes. So installing a wider sidewalk in this area would require the removal of all of those existing trees along the front, and then would reduce the front yards within that along White House Lane. To maintain a safe and adequate access for all pedestrians, the applicant is proposing to repair the sections. There's some sections of broken sidewalk and curb and kind of some issues with that. So we are recommending approval of this request, but I do have a specific condition that I'm proposing that would require the repair of the sections of sidewalk along White House Lane, so that at least it is a up to current standards as far as construction, not necessarily width. And then finally, the last one, again, this is the same section. It's because the sidewalk on Highway 200 is less than 5 feet. There's a little bit where that railing is that it gets a little wider. But again, it would require making it at 5 feet all the way down would require reconstruction of the entire sidewalk. The applicant did reach out to MDT, and they may talk about this. They did reach out to MDT to find out, you know, if there are any projects coming up for this area. And there is a tentative project planned in FY 2023 that would modify the 3 crosswalks out here and install some ADA ramp upgrades, but they wouldn't be extending or replacing or doing anything with the sidewalks at this time. And so, yeah, so we are recommending approval of that one. This is just a summary of the agency comments. I actually went over them in my discussion here. We did notify adjacent property owners by certified mail, published legal in the paper, posted a poster out there on site. I've had no comments on the project at this time at all. And so, yeah, for that, I have 5 recommended motions, and mainly because there's the 4 variances and then the overall subdivision for each one. So I can go into more detail if you guys want me to.
Great. Thank you very much, Bailey. Maybe before we launch into questions, we'll, does the representatives, does Joe or Mike or anybody have a presentation or anything you guys would like to say at this point?
Yeah, Sean, thanks for asking. We do have a quick presentation I'd like to go over and
Great.
do that really quickly.
And Joe, if I can figure out how to stop sharing, I would love to do that. I'm not totally sure how to stop sharing.
It's got to hold.
Does anybody know how to stop sharing?
If you go back, if you press escape out of your presentation and go back to the actual Zoom webinar, there should be,
do it.
yeah, there should be a thing you can click that says stop sharing.
Oh. Hopefully you guys just get to see my screen here. Sorry.
Oh, it's lovely.
Meeting controls. Oh, there it is. Way over here. It's on my 3rd screen. Sorry. I've got 3 of them up here. Apologize for that, everybody.
Oh, it's fine. No big deal. All right. Now we have to bear with another person trying to make sure they're sharing the right screen. How about that? All right. I'll try this one first. You guys let me know if you guys can see slide 1, Bonner West subdivision.
I can see it.
Okay. And now let's see if I can do a cool pointer option like Bailey. Let's see. Do you see laser pointer? Anyone? Do you see a laser pointer on the screen?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, first and foremost, wow, Bailey, thank you so much for your thorough presentation. I'm always pleasantly surprised when CAPS gets on here with their presentations because they truthfully cover most of the material that I plan on covering. So it makes my job really easy. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd like to thank the members of the planning board for being here tonight. And I don't know if we have any members of the public who've come to voice their opinions regarding the proposed subdivision, but thank you if we do. For brevity's sake, I will try to zoom over most of the things if I feel like, you know, Bailey covered everything I need to say. So let's see if I can change slides. Hopefully that worked. This is just a brief overview of kind of the processes that brought us here today. So way back in May, we had our pre-app and Bailey has been with us from the start on this. As you can tell from her thorough presentation, she probably knows this project as well as we do. But after that, we had our neighborhood meeting. We submitted our first element in August of last year, submitted a second element review. There were some element deficiencies on that first submittal. And we were deemed element complete in October. After submitting our first sufficiency submittal, we were deemed sufficient for a governing body submittal in November. And then obviously we're here today for our planning board meeting. And we have the Board of County Commissioners coming up on January 27th. And like Bailey covered, and I'll just briefly go over it, you know, you can see from the existing conditions out here, and like she mentioned, that almost all the infrastructure involved in the subdivision already exists. I do think it's worth mentioning, though, that the purpose of the proposed subdivision is to create individual parcels around the existing homes so they can be sold as real property rather than just continuing to operate as investment rental units. If approved, this subdivision would offer residents the option to be homeowners in the growing Bonner community, which not only offers proximity to recreation, but serves as a commuter community for those working in Missoula. So I'm going to glance over this. We are in compliance with the land use element. We are in compliance with the growth policy. We are zoning compliant. There is that weird little section that's always entertaining in the industrial side of the property. And I'm going to briefly go over these variances. Bailey, you did a phenomenal job. You covered them in depth. I'm not going to cite the specific sections, but essentially, it's 4 variances all relating to the same thing, like Bailey said. The first variance seen on the screen here is the one she was referencing for the north of Highway 200. And, just to clarify, the denial of this variance would require MDT approval for construction within the right of way. At this time, our conversations with MDT have indicated that they would require an approach permit, that they would prefer to have a maintenance agreement with the county for any new amenities within the right of way, and also that the plans be reviewed by County Public Works. And the second variance on this screen here is same section, but relating to the south side of Highway 200. This is the sidewalk extension that would go into the Mountain Lion bus turnaround. Bailey has offered a recommendation of approval for this variance as the sidewalk terminates at the bus turnaround for Mountain Lion. The developer is proposing a 50-foot wide private access and utility easement along the west side of the common area south of Highway 200 to ensure continued use of this area by Mountain Lion is maintained. Here are the next 2 variances. The first one relates, like she said, to White House Lane. The variance we're proposing is basically from the requirement of the boulevard, like she said, and the requirement of the sidewalks to be 5 foot in width. Bailey has included in her staff report that a condition of approval for this variance be that the developer repairs the existing sections of broken sidewalk and curb infrastructure along White House Lane, as she mentioned, and we see absolutely no issue with this being a condition of approval. The second variance here is the one she was referencing along the south side of Montana, State Highway 200. Once again, there's already existing infrastructure that provides safe, adequate access for pedestrian travel. Additionally, there, like she said, are existing and mature trees along White House Lane, which would have to be removed to facilitate a sidewalk expansion, which could result in the reduction of existing front yards and create non-conforming structures regarding setbacks. So we do believe this variance should be supported, and that's also validated by Bailey's recommendation for approval. So this just gives a closer look at the plat that Bailey had up about some of those access easements for the proposed subdivision. So on the left here, we see the 40-foot emergency fire access easement, which will serve as the emergency access vehicle turnaround for the alley, which connects to White House Lane via this easement. A draft fire suppression easement agreement has already been drafted, and the plan is for that to be filed prior to final plat approval. As part of this easement agreement, the emergency service providers will have keyed access, granting them use of the easement running through the Bonner Mill site. The image on the right here shows the offsite road, Cold Smoke Avenue, which allows for public access and utility between the developer and K3 LLC, the owners of the Kettle House Amphitheater. I do think it's worth mentioning here, Bailey, talked about some of the fire suppression systems that we have in place out there, with the high pressure well and the cistern. So like she mentioned, the subject property is within the Missoula Rural Fire District, and it's approximately 1 mile from that new station. The existing system, like I said, consists of that large production well and that large cistern located on the hill to the east of the proposed subdivision. There are existing water main lines that supply water to the existing hydrants along Highway 200 and White House Lane. These images here show where new hydrants have actually been installed. So this right here is the alley that runs, probably easier to show you on the existing condition, right here. Right, so this alley runs right here, and this is where that fire hydrant is located, and the other one next to it is located up here, as you can see in this photo right here. And then there's already been a fire hydrant that's been installed along the east side of Stimson Boulevard. These plans were reviewed and approved by the Missoula Rural Fire District. So That being said, Bailey did a phenomenal job, and I'd like to thank everyone for their time and consideration with this project. And I'd like to make myself and also Dan Foltz and Mike Heisey available for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks,
Did I
Joe.
stop? Did I stop sharing?
No, well, yeah, you did.
Okay, good.
Good. And thank you very much. That was good presentation and a little more information for us to consider. So I believe that's all the presentations we have at the moment, and that will lead us into the public comment period of this part of the public hearing. And so we will open this up to public comment now. And I don't see anybody in the queue at the moment, but I'll read off the instructions. And if you're out there and you want to join in, this usually takes me a minute or two. So you can take the opportunity to join in now. If you are online and you want to call in, and the cell phone users can use number area code 253-215-8782. Or landline users can call in on 1-888-475-4499. Webinar ID is 842-9399-6424. And the password is 999636. Again, the password is 999636. And then you can press *9 to raise your hand or *6 to mute and unmute. If you are watching us via YouTube and calling in on your phone or watching us in any other way other than and want to call in, remember that if you got two devices going, there will be an echo. So mute or shut down the device you're watching on and just talk through your phone. And I think that's always it. I always feel like I'm messing up these instructions, but that's the join in options. We'll give everybody a few minutes to join in out there in the public if they choose to.
I think Dave may be inadvertently sharing his screen.
Yeah.
Good job, Dave, making some progress. All right, we're gonna give it just one more minute. I don't see anybody coming in at the moment. It's a good idea. Okay, that minute's up. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment period. And if we get somebody that joins in, we'll go ahead and just bring them into the conversation and let them ask their question. So now we'll move on to board members and your comments and questions for Bailey or Joe or Mike or Dan. So fire away, folks. Raise your hand. Let's get started. All right, I had Josh first, and then I saw Shane. So we'll start with Josh. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah. My first question was just about kind of the purpose of this, but that was answered. They all are rental properties on a single lot, so it makes sense why they'd want to subdivide. Secondly, how onerous do you think the approach permit and the maintenance agreement for that sidewalk extension will be? Just wanted, see if that could, cause a a problem with the approval of the subdivision. And then secondly, I thought I saw some boxes to the, would it be to the north of the alley that said multi-user replacement area? I was just curious what those were.
Yeah, this is Dan Foltz with IMEG. I think I can handle both those questions for you. Good questions. The approach or encroachment permit from MDT is kind of an unknown variable right now. We weren't anticipating it. I've done a number of them over the years, and some of them are very simple, and some of them become more complex. I think this one, with our preliminary talking with Glenn Cameron at MDT, it's gonna definitely be more complex because there is a high traffic volume through this area. I don't know, Josh, if you've ever been out there for a Kettle House Amphitheater concert, but there's a lot of traffic, a lot of pedestrian traffic. So they're definitely going to want to cross their T's on this design. You know, we will as engineers, but them also as reviewers. The maintenance agreement, Bailey, you might chime in if you think differently, but I think it should be relatively simple. I mean, I think it's something that the HOA is going to have to provide that says they're going to maintain those, and you know, street sweeping on the sidewalk in the springtime, snow plowing in the winter. I mean, those are the big maintenance things that I think MDT wants taken care of. One of the things that I don't quite understand is, you know, in the city, there's an enforcement mechanism for people that aren't cleaning their sidewalk. In the county, I'm not aware of that. You know, I don't think the planning department's going to take up that role as enforcement. So that's just something to work through. But Mike has said that they already have somebody that contracts out at the majority of the mill site that takes care of maintenance and snow plowing. So I don't think that's too big of a deal for the HOA to take over. And right now, the person that actually takes care of these sidewalks and plows them is the school. So the Bonner property and Mike used to do it, and the school is offered to do it. And they do that. And the same with the Mountain Line bus turnaround. It used to be the mill plowed that out, and now MDT does it. And so when they're plowing the highway, they just kind of sweep through and plow that out. There's a lot of that goes on in this little Bonner community out here. Just kind of the neighbors helping neighbors, and it's kind of refreshing to see. But hopefully those answer your questions on the approach permit. The biggest kind of ripple effect of that variance not being approved is the time frame for when this plat can get filed. That's the biggest thing that we see. We're definitely not against putting in the sidewalk. We're just trying to find the quickest way to get these houses on the market for people that want to buy them instead of rent. So there's that. Josh, the question about drain fields, this is all of these houses are either shared drain field or a multi-user drain field, meaning 3 or more houses connected to it. And because of that, drain fields are kind of inherently designed to fail over time. And so we had to show a replacement area for when that drain field does fail, where it would be replaced. And those replacement areas are required to have the same setback as a primary. So that's why you're seeing 2 different boxes. So hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, thank you.
Sean, I can pop in as far as so I talked with Glenn about the maintenance agreement and the sidewalk, and I don't have a whole lot of experience as far as the timeline with MDT and their approach permit, you know, encroachment permits and that kind of thing. But he did explain to me, and this is kind of what Dan was getting at, generally in the city, right, if somebody doesn't shovel their sidewalk, the city enforces that, and they go after them and they say, okay, we shovel it, and we, you know, may put a lien on your property or do something to get that money back. The county doesn't, or I should say MDT doesn't do that. And so that's when I was talking to Glenn, and I think that it hasn't really been done in the county, but this is something that MDT, I believe, is trying to start doing more with the county like they would do in the city. And that's so if, you know, MDT is not going to come and shovel a sidewalk and then go put it on your property taxes to pay for that, right? The public does that. And so that's where they would want the county, or they've been in discussions and it's formulating with this kind of policy that the county would be involved. I'm not a whole lot sure how that works out. Because I'm not part of those discussions, but that seems to be what they're talking about as far as maintenance is like, okay, if shoveling has to happen, if street, sweeping of it has to happen, who would actually have to do that work if the property owners or the HOA doesn't do that. So.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Okay, let's, Shane, you're up next.
Thanks. So I guess maybe, I guess I'll ask my initial question first. So was there, totally get, the sidewalks are existing, that, doesn't seem like in general, it doesn't seem like it's necessary to replace them right now. Wondering if there was any thought given to, it's only a 60-foot right of way out there from what I can tell. And it's all pretty tight, and the sidewalks exist within that 60-foot right of way. If in the future, if things did evolve, the sidewalks would seemingly have to be put back exactly where they are right now in that easement without taking over more of the owner's property. I guess I'm wondering, is there any thought to giving like a, right on the edge of the Highway 200 easement, if it would make sense to add another 5-foot easement or something like that to allow for a future sidewalk that could have some boulevard away from the road. I mean, it seems like whenever I work with MDT on these highways, which is not often, but we're wanting to pull the sidewalks away, especially where there's, high-speed traffic and it's a state highway, I suppose. So, I mean, does it make sense to think about that right now and not have to add an easement in the future to allow the sidewalks to be moved away from the highway?
Just to clarify, you're talking about, essentially making an easement so that way the sidewalks now can have a little extra width into the MDT right of way. Is that your question?
I guess the question is, beyond the 60-foot right of way, would it make sense to add another 5 feet, on either side, such that the 5-foot sidewalk could be outside of that existing 60-foot right of way?
Yeah, I mean, Bailey, maybe you can, offer some clarification here. Dan, feel free to chime in. I know that, on Highway 200, I believe it serves as a collector. Bailey, there's a minimum construction width that they have to have for parking on either side. And I think that's, like a 34 or 36-foot width. It's currently paved, I think, to like a 50-foot width right now on MDT. But to my understanding, anything that's going to happen in that MDT easement that's running through these is kind of in their court. That's the way I understand it now. So I'm not really sure adding, a 5-foot easement or something like that for sidewalks is part of this discussion at this point on our end. It might be, something that's had on the MDT side. But if I'm way off there, Bailey or Dan, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I think I can chime in there, Shane. I think that's a great question. And I think I'm understanding what you're saying. The biggest thing that I see causing the problem there is, the sidewalks, when you walk down the street out there, the sidewalks feel a normal distance from the front step of the house. If they were pushed another 5 feet closer to those houses, you're really starting to encroach upon the front porch of those houses. So there's that. Another thing is we do have water mains running on the south side of the highway, right? Kind of where you're talking about including in that sidewalk easement. So there'd be a little utility conflict there. And then on the north side, and I don't know if Bailey, you have that presentation handy, but the area that we were talking about, the rail going kind of on towards Cold Smoke Ave, as you get towards Cold Smoke Ave, there's stairs down to most of those houses. So to push the sidewalk another 5 feet towards those houses, you'd encroach upon the front steps of those houses even more, so those are just kind of the construction concerns of having sidewalk that close. And then I guess we didn't explore it any further or propose it at this time just because MDT was not interested in owning this land or expanding that right away from their information, that their comments and the preliminary information that we got from them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was more trying to think of like in the distant future when, there's redevelopment happening, which might happen here at some point, does it make, what is the lot and like, what does that sidewalk really want to be? It is kind of a little neighborhood and, having a little boulevard there would be nice. Totally understand where you guys are. So I'll just leave it at that. Can I ask one more question that kind of went back to where Josh was? Bailey, is there any mechanism where we can, I personally don't feel like it's necessary to slow down this process for, the sidewalk on the north side closest to Cold Smoke Way. Is there any mechanism that we could use such that there's a development agreement that it has to happen within a year of filing the plat or something like that, so that it doesn't need to be done prior to the filing of that?
Well, the county does allow subdivision improvement agreements to be drafted, which basically is an agreement between the developer and the county. Generally, it's 125% of the cost, so 100% plus 25% contingency that they could do at the time of final plat. So that's really our mechanism that we allow roads, sanitation. I mean, we allow a lot of things to be included within those subdivision improvement agreements. And that would be, they could apply or, propose that at the time of final plat, or it really happens prior to final plat or around the same time to be able to meet that condition. And that is what would have the agreement that would have, a letter of credit or some type of bond or some, financial guarantee, and then an agreed upon date of when that would have to happen. And then if for some reason, say that happens and it doesn't get put in by that date, then that's where the county could call that letter of credit or that bond or whatever it is and go in and do the work themselves to have that extended. So that's generally the way those types of things work versus, to be able to meet the conditions of subdivision approval and final and some of those issues. So.
Thank you.
And I'll just chime in just for your information. Shane, that is our current plan. I mean, that's how we were going to proceed the whole time on this. One of the things, if you guys thought about anything, would be potentially amending that conditional approval to not require that we actually have the encroachment permit issued before we can file. Because that way that could be in the works. That takes some time, but we would have those plans at least submitted far enough along to get that, engineer's estimate to get our letter of credit and the 125%. So just something I'd throw out there that could help us kind of get where Shane was talking about a little quicker.
Great, good. That answers one of my questions. I have Ellie next and then Dave after Ellie.
Hey, thanks. So this might be a very similar question to what Shane just asked, but Bailey, you mentioned almost as a little aside comment that the idea of a future bike walk connectivity easement, is that different than what Shane's talking about with like having an additional easement for the sidewalk, or is there a reason we wouldn't do that now?
Yeah, so that was the comment that the MPO, the Missoula Metropolitan Planning Organization, so Aaron Wilson, he's the one that submitted kind of that comment or that idea about having an additional 5-foot extension of the right-of-way easement on both sides. And generally, I mean, we didn't recommend that as a condition, mainly because MDT, who actually is the one that has the right-of-way, they didn't have any comment or support or didn't have an issue. So that gets into one of our things. If I can't show that it's mitigating some type of, issue or safety hazard or something like that, that's that give and take, right, of conditions, mitigating impacts. And without the support of, MDT or a comment of that, that's why we weren't recommending any additional extension. But that is basically the same thing that Shane was asking about. Yeah.
Thank you. The other question I have is like, how common is cash in lieu used for like land dedication? And I don't know that there would be any other option for this particular site, but I just don't know about that tool. So could you address it just a little bit more?
Yeah, it's actually pretty common, or to even see what the applicant is proposing here, which is a split of it. So some land as well as some cash in lieu dedication. Yeah, so it is pretty common to see that. It's based, they have to do a fair market value of the land at the time of final plat approval. So it's not necessarily based off of what it is now. It could be what it is then. There can be some fluctuation in cost of that, but they would have to basically provide that cash, a check usually for whatever that amount is at the time of final plat, and then that goes into the general parks fees for maintenance and things like that, or the potential to do improvements in other county parks that are out there. So
great, thank you.
Okay, good. Dave, that brings you up next.
Thank you, Sean. I'm sorry, I can't get my video to work.
It's quite all right.
Anyway, my question has to do more about the housing itself, about the owners of the property now are, I'm wondering if they have a first right of refusal for existing residents to the purchase of the house, and something on that order. I guess.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for the question. I think Mike's probably the person to answer that question. They've been in the process of doing this on kind of up and down Highway 200 there over the last about a year now, I think.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of taking those all those houses were on individual lots, but they were all rental properties. And so the Bonner Properties Development has been selling those to individual owners. And I guess the specifics of how that works, I guess I'll let Mike, you answer that.
So Dave, just so I understand your question, are you referring to the tenants that live there presently or to the general public? I guess I could divide between the two. So what we've done is for the tenants that are currently renting the properties from us, we've given first opportunity to buy at no competition. So at whatever the property appraises at or whatever we decide to sell at, we've given those tenants first opportunity at those houses that they currently live in. And then the rest will just go on the open market and be sold as our realtor works through that.
Yes, thank you. I think that answers my question. Thanks, guys.
Any other questions, Dave?
No, thanks.
Okay, does anybody else have anything at the time? Nobody? All right, well, maybe somebody will think of something. I have a couple of questions for y'all here. I think just looking at that first variance, and I agree a lot with Shane. I don't necessarily want to slow this project down because we're denying that variance, but I also see the importance of a sidewalk there. It feels like not only for the residents, but that is a crazy busy intersection. And I can only imagine how much the foot traffic is, and that park must get cut across the lot. I've never actually been to a concert there, but so I like the idea of trying to, put in some language that maybe we can approve this variance, but also hold the developers to extending that sidewalk, which they sound like they like that idea as well. And then maybe more of a question, that was a statement. I was wondering about early on in the presentation, we talked a little bit about renovations or like tear downs and rebuilds, and that would have to go through like a historical look, or I wasn't quite sure who would review it, but what kind of renovations will new homeowners be able to do without triggering that? And then once that is triggered, what will be expected of the new homeowners? Is that a tall hurdle for people, or? What are we looking at there?
Joe, I know you talked with the SHPO office. Do you want to touch base on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Bailey. So first off, that's a really good question, Sean. And because these properties are over 50 years old, essentially what SHPO likes, what they prefer, is to have a recommendation from a historic architectural specialist whether or not a property needs to be recorded via a Montana Historic Property Record form. And so really what that looks like in function is all these properties could go through and have an investigation by a historic architectural specialist. They complete the property record form. And then for all intents and purposes, homeowners could do whatever they want with them. Really what SHPO's interested in is creating a record of historic properties. So that way, if someone were to look back on this area in the past, they could see what the mill site homes looked like. So, to get at the, context of your question about like what are homeowners able to do, really what SHPO doesn't want is they don't want the demolishment or a significant character change from what I can tell on the criteria to the property record form. But outside of that, it's really up to a historic architectural specialist to determine whether or not it's even eligible, because that's really all they care about is this eligible or not? And then based off that recommendation, it'll be, get comprehensive photos taken of it, and then it'll be put on the Montana Historic Property Record information system. But there's really no huge hurdles as far as, jumping through different things that they can't, improve an exterior wall, or they can't do X, Y, or Z. Even if they are determined eligible, even if they are determined appropriate. And the contracting fees for historic architectural specialists that we've worked in the past range from $1,500 to $2,500 max that I've seen. So, even jumping that hurdle isn't a large one if people did want to, go through that process or had to go through that process to be deemed eligible. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that sounds good. I just didn't want people to have to make a huge hurdle. They're buying houses. And then I see Toombs. I got one more question here. So this was kind of discussed a little bit in our pre-meeting this afternoon, but so the easement, the right-of-way that MDT doesn't want to acquire permanently now, if in the future they decide to acquire that right-of-way permanently, that changes the property sizes and that changes a bunch of things around as far as the land like size designation. How does that affect what homeowners are going to have to go through in order, if their lot size changes from X to Y, which is smaller, how is that going to impact the homeowners?
Yeah, so you are correct. The Highway 200, it's a right of way. It's not dedicated property lines or, dedicated fee simple property to MDT. So the individual property lines, their front property line is actually the center line of Highway 200 is really where it is. So if the right of way is dedicated to the state, then that becomes not their property, and their property line would move back to wherever that right of way ends. Obviously, that is how our setbacks are measured. We measure from the front property line. The zoning out here requires a 25-foot front setback. So that would really, and right now the homes are pretty much on that 25-foot setback, or really darn close in a couple of them. There's some that have a little wiggle room, but some of them are right on that 25-foot line. So, if that were to happen, MDT would have, they would end up going to each property owner, right? And they would have to acquire that additional land area. They'd have to work with each one to either, I'm assuming they don't do eminent domain very much anymore. Usually there's some compensation for that. It's not really looked upon to just take land. But they would have to figure that out, what that is for each individual lot owner. And then once that's acquired, those lots would basically become non-conforming lots. So the structures become non-conforming structures, the lots become non-conforming lots. We have standards in our zoning that say what you can and can't do as far as non-conforming structures, expansion, alterations, things like that. It definitely would make things a lot more challenging for those property owners if they want to repair or replace or do additions to those types of things. It wouldn't necessarily affect the sides, but really the front property lines are really the ones that would be affected the most. The main thing though is that a lot of people look at, oh, the lot's non-conforming, it's too small to say, it doesn't meet the minimum lot size needed for a single family house, and say the house burns down. A lot of people go, oh, I can't rebuild it. They could. They're legal lots. They are allowed to have a use. They may just need a variance or some other form in order to do the work there. So it's not saying that they're not legal lots, or you can't you can't build on them anymore. They just have more challenges, I would say, as it goes forward. So that it would affect them quite a bit, considerably.
Bailey, is there any precedent that you know of for, like, say the county commissioners, this happens and the county commissioners are like, can they grant a variant? Like, does anybody ever grant like homeowners a variance because MDT's taken 60 feet of their land now?
They could. So zoning variances go to the Board of Adjustment. There are criteria, just like subdivision variances, that hardship and things like that. I mean, that could easily be a criteria that is outside of a property owner's control. Like, is that they came in, MDT says, we are taking this right of way, and we're going to pay you for it, but not very much. And here you go, it's ours. And so, I mean, that could be something that is considered a hardship. I mean, that would be an argument I would use, as saying, that's kind of outside of their control to do. But that would be going through, a completely different process, different board. And the Board of Adjustment, they are a final decision-making board. So it's not like the project here, where it goes to planning board and then goes to the commissioners or city council. The Board of Adjustment is the final decision board. And they do take variances, I will say, I don't want to say stringently, but I mean, they're looked at pretty hard. And the reason why is because, our regulations are set up for a reason, right? And so, to deviate from that, they want to make sure that, okay, there's a valid reason of why you're deviating. You're not just because, well, I want my house 5 feet closer or something, for whatever it is. So that is to say, we don't see a lot of them, but that is, something that is a mechanism that's set up for non-conforming lots and structures and things like that.
Great. Thank you, Bailey. Okay, Toon, you're up. Thanks.
Yeah, so I share the sentiment. Like, I definitely don't want to, I would love to get this done pretty quickly, but I did have some questions as far as like future use. I think Dave and Sean both touched on them. One, I was wondering if the group could provide a little bit of color as to the likelihood of existing owners taking up the offer to purchase these. I'm kind of just thinking about the long-term character and housing. And then a more general question, maybe for Bailey, is, is there anything preventing somebody coming in and buying multiple adjacent lots and then combining them and building duplexes or something else, or acquiring a large tract of land and, say, putting up an apartment building or a hotel?
I think, Mike, that's a great questions. I'll touch on the second one real quick, if that's okay. The biggest hurdle out here at the mill site, which Mike is well aware of, is water and sewer disposal in those regulations. And so the possibility of people adding more units or apartment building or hotel, that's really limited out here until some type of community wastewater system is built or provided. And the recent, there was a plan and a kind of a feasibility study by HDR to do that out here, and it was found that the community and neighborhood didn't want it and not really feasible for the time being. So that's kind of the biggest hurdle for future development. So it's kind of what it is, and anytime we're dealing with on-site wastewater, it's kind of stuck to individual houses with the same number of bedrooms they have now. And then Mike, I think this question was about how many people have expressed interest of buying these houses that actually live there. I think, is that what you're asking about? Okay.
Yeah, so I think currently there's 19 homes left to sell. And I think currently I would say probably 5 that would like to stay and purchase if they can. So, and they have round numbers of what the houses sold for on the east side. So I'd say all of them have done their due diligence for banking and so forth and feel confident that they can purchase. So I think we won't know until actually we're subdivided and they can, pursue their banking. But at this time, I think there's probably about roughly a third, maybe not quite a third.
And Mike, have you noticed, because this has been done on the east side of 200 or south side, as Bailey likes to call it, has there been a big change in the people or families that live in these units or that are buying these units from rental to purchase?
No, I would say that the demographic has been very, very similar from what we've seen. A lot of young families, younger to middle-aged families purchased on the east or south side, and the ones that have expressed interest on what we can call the west side or north side, very much the same.
Great, thank you. I see Shane. Oh, wait, no. Yep, Shane's got a hand up. Go ahead, Shane.
Maybe just one more question for Bailey. Just thinking through the, potential that we're going to end up with a whole bunch of non-conforming lots here. Is there any thought to, I guess, as we go through the county zoning code update, to kind of have a special zoning designation for this area to kind of think about that? I mean, practically speaking, we know the lots are 30 feet less deep than they are shown here. And I think everybody understands that. It's not like anybody's trying to, build in the right of way. They can't. Is there a way that it could be, that this area could be zoned in a way that, makes these legal lots when the zoning update is done?
So what's interesting about the zoning update, and you guys will get to talk about this here in a couple months. So we're proposing to get rid of all of the special districts. We aren't going to be allowing the creation of special districts anymore. So there's some that we are keeping as what we're going to call legacy districts, which, if it's a subdivision and had, say, a PUD approved or, specific to some of those that they just don't fit into standard zoning, we will, honor them. We are giving a lot of the people the option to change and say, yeah, we don't want this legacy district anymore. We want to go to a standard county zone. So in that regards, I don't believe we would, support that. I don't want to say support it because I'm not on the long range side of things, but that's the general way they're going, is to get rid of anything that has, special conditions of a zone change or that's specific or different, and try to just keep them. These are our basic zones. So in that case, I wouldn't foresee them doing that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, or you probably don't have the answer to this question either, but is there just a zoning district that would work? I mean, this seems like it wouldn't be an atypical, configuration in quasi-urban parts of the county. I mean, it feels like it could fit into a zoning district that would be created as a normal district. And I mean, it feels like there could be a correction that happens pretty quickly here to the zoning that makes these not legal non-conforming lots, but actually gives them some ability to have slightly smaller quasi-urban or suburban, lot sizes, because they're not small. I mean, you
Mm-mm.
know, they're quite a bit larger than a lot of city lots.
Mhm.
When you factor in the fact that they're going to lose 30 feet of their front yard.
I can, if you give me a second, I'll dig through my zoning code. I know, I can look at, I can't remember, there's the neighborhood residential. We do have some higher density ones. I mean, obviously even the growth policy is showing this as, you know, one of our higher density, 8 dwelling units per acre is pretty big for the county. Let me, if you give me a quick second, I'll try to look and see if I can see anything in this draft as far as that. I know Dave has a hand up as well too. Because I totally see your point.
Go ahead and take a minute, Bailey, and look that up, and then we'll see if we'll hear Dave's question and see if it just piles on or if we can direct it towards somebody else. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, thank you. I would advocate that this situation, existing developments warrant these special districts, and new developments don't warrant that. And then new developments, yes, they should fit into the new standard county zoning. I think the position of making these lots legal conforming in this special district has a lot of merit. That's it. That's my pitch.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Does anybody want to respond? Very good. We'll give Bailey a few. Okay, go ahead, Bailey.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I'm looking up because I know, I mean, obviously the zoning is proposed to changing. I wasn't even sure what the proposed zoning was planning to be out here. Let me get into our map that's not going, unless I don't know if Dan or Joe, if you guys had looked at that, what the proposed zoning was going to be out here.
No, I don't believe we have. A
Okay.
lot of other projects, I could probably answer that for you, but not on this one, so.
Okay, so this one is going, this area is going to go to the neighborhood residential. Oh, wow. It's going to allow, it says, so for building setbacks in the neighborhood residential is going down to a 5-foot front setback. And then, and this is where I apologize because I'm still figuring this stuff out, but they're proposing build to zones, and that has a front distance of 5 feet to 15 feet. I can't remember totally. I feel like it's like the minimum you can have is 5 feet, but the build to zones is supposed to be looked at like the character of the area and kind of generally. So within 5 to 15, like it could be moved around a little bit. But again, I haven't had to really dig into this one yet. It's not adopted yet. But yeah, but it looks like, I mean, just the building setbacks would be principal structure, front setback would be 5 feet, sides would be 5 feet, and a rear would be 15 feet. So.
Are there changes in density?
Let's see. Nope, it's still listed at 8 homes per acre is the minimum. And that's the thing, there's no maximum. So that's like a big change that you guys will get to talk about too, is we're proposing minimum densities, not maximum densities. So the minimum density in here would be 8 homes per acre. There is some minimum lot width requirements. 50 feet is the minimum lot width for single family homes or duplex homes. And some max coverage, 60% lot coverage, minimum depth. But yeah, definitely the setbacks, that's quite a change, 25 feet down to 5 feet for sure. So that might be something that I, Dan and Joe, we might be able to talk about that too more before the commissioners meeting. Because honestly, I hadn't really looked into it because it's not, this is like drafty draft. Like I have no idea if this is what's going to be the final draft that happens with the commissioners. So bearing that in mind and taking that with a small grain of salt is that, it could stay the same at 25 feet. It probably, I doubt it, but that's just a caveat to my comment.
Very good. Thanks for looking that up. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, it sounds like that goes to Tim's question about, so what if somebody buys them and combines it? Now you've increased the density a lot. Just be aware of it. I think that's where he's going with. That's what I'm seeing in this thing, so I want to, that's why I'm advocating in existing developments with special circumstances, which this has, that it's okay to have special zoning districts to accommodate existing projects with these unique circumstances. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks. That makes sense to me. But I'm not on the county commission. I see, well, oh, yeah. Josh, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna make a quick comment. Wouldn't that be where the SHPO office would come in? If there was proposed demolition of those structures? I don't know, just, could be a additional fail-safe.
I definitely see that being a possibility, at least as, a hurdle, but I don't know how big a hurdle.
Yeah, I definitely think, Dan's comment earlier about the water and sanitation out here. I mean, yes, it is possible, that could happen. I mean, that can happen a lot of places as well, but generally, yes. I mean, there's no minimum lot sizes. It would allow, large apartments are allowed in the neighborhood residential district, that type of thing. But I do think Dan's comment about water and sanitation is a big one, kind of like, I know you guys don't see a lot of stuff up in Sealy, but it's the same things we get up in Sealy, their water sanitation, that's really putting a hold on development and being able to do it. So just because it's unzoned or it's zoned doesn't mean, that all the other little ducks fall in a row and you can do it. So I think that's just something, to Dan's point, is, there's multiple things that would have to occur for something like that to happen out here.
Okay, so given some major improvements, not likely, at least in the next little future. All right, I'm not seeing any more hands up from board members. Does anybody want to take a stab at a motion that perhaps?
I can put my slide back up with all of them on, if that would help you guys. Okay, bear with me.
And if somebody also wants to take a stab at, I don't know if we want to put any, amendments to the first variance. Sorry, I lost my notes. Not in my normal office.
Did it share my screen? Just FYI. I can't.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
What was the condition that we were discussing? I forget how that would be titled. If we were going to say that we're denying that first variant, but wanted it to be an amendment, or what was it called? An agreement?
So I think it's actually, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you guys were looking at condition 10, which is the one that says the developer shall acquire all necessary permits or easements needed for the sidewalk extension, including but not limited to an encroachment permit from MDT and a building permit from the County Public Works for any necessary handrails. So I believe it was just the language, that the encroachment, like if the encroachment permit is required at the time of final plat. Hopefully I got that right, Joe.
Yep, that's the one I was referencing
Dan,
with would help out on the timeline. Right now, as I read the conditions of approval, the proposed condition of approval, we would have to have that permit secured before we could bond for the improvements. Obviously, we still need that permit. We need building permits to do any type of construction. But if we could have that permit deadline move back, after filing of the plat to allow us to file it with the improvements agreement, that would be good. So I'm not sure the best way to word that, Bailey, but that would help us help our project timeline quite a bit. So.
And I wonder if it's, and I'm thinking off the seat of my pants right here, but if some language would be added at the end, I think we have some standard stuff that says like either prior to final plat approval or, with a subdivision improvement agreement guarantee or something along that line. I can do some digging here if you guys have more to talk about to see.
That's what I've seen before, Bailey.
I think that'll be really helpful for us, Bailey, to make that sorry, that variance work, and then we can approve it, is to attach a condition to it. And that's my understanding, right, is we would like to approve this variance with a condition attached to it.
Yes, the first, my brain's going multiple ways. So the one that I'm recommending to be denied, because I'm recommending denial, that is why I have conditions 9 and 10. That's where those two proposed conditions come in. So if, for example, you were recommending approval of that variance, then you would want to recommend striking conditions 9 and 10 because they would no longer be applicable. So that's the correlation between those two.
Oh, okay.
And then
Okay.
just so you know, the third variance that I have up there about White House Lane, that one's related to condition number 11.
Okay.
So that's where I'm recommending approval with that condition as well.
If I can just add a little bit, Sean, I think if the planning board's recommendation is that we build the sidewalk, but maybe help us out with that condition of approval about the encroachment permit, you would still want to deny the variance and amend the condition of approval.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to think of a project that I've had that kind of language in, so sorry, bear with me.
No worries, Bailey. I'm taking some notes.
Yeah, Bailey, a project that I've worked on and that's sort of tangential, but it contains similar language. Is essentially the language is the subdivision improvements agreement shall contain an engineer's estimate, an approved engineer's estimate for the completion of the sidewalk north of Highway 200, and must be accepted with an improvements agreement prior to final plat approval. That removes the qualification that the approach permit has to be prior. We still need the approach permit, like Dan said. We still need all the building permits, but the only thing that is required prior to final plat approval is that the engineer's estimate is approved and the letter of credit is basically accepted by the county of Missoula. That's something that I know I've done on another project.
Go ahead, Shane.
I did work through this in my head. I think that so I think that what we're saying is that we should go through these recommended motions in order, and we're voting on them. And I think I don't want to tip my hand too much. I guess maybe we just need to make the first motion and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So maybe I'll start with the first motion.
Please do.
Okay. I move that the request to vary from section 3.4.9.1C required existing non-motorized facilities be extended along the entire frontage of the subdivision on the north side of Highway 200 be denied.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave Loomis, I believe.
That'll work, yes.
Okay. Do we have any discussion about this now, or start working on language?
I think that I believe that the way that I see this is that we should just I intend to vote to approve the motion that I just made and deny this variance, I guess is what I would say, and I don't intend to amend it. I'm thinking that the amendment would come down in number 5. That makes sense.
It does. That's where I'm at in my understanding as well. I think this is kind of some of our first, at least the current board's first attempt at this type of amendment and trying to change things around a little bit here. So bear with us. We'll work it out. So we've got a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote for this one, just to make sure we got everything on the up and up.
Okay, are we ready
Okay.
for the vote?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Josh Schrader.
Aye.
Josh Schrader votes yes. Dave Loomis.
Yes.
Dave Loomis votes yes. Sierra Farmer.
Yes.
Sierra Farmer votes yes. Toon Pham.
Yes.
Toon Pham votes yes. Ellie Costello.
Yes.
Ellie Costello votes yes. Shane Morrissey.
Yes.
Shane Morrissey votes yes. Sean McCoy.
Yes.
Sean McCoy votes yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And then I think, folks, we'll just proceed through the rest. If somebody wants to make a motion and read them off, and then when we get to number 5, we'll have a little work to do.
I can keep rolling if you want me to.
Please.
I move that the request to vary from section 3.4.9.1C requiring existing non-motorized facilities be extended along the entire frontage of the subdivision on the south side of Highway 200 be approved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who that was.
Oh, Ellie.
And we have a second from Ellie. And I think we'll do another roll call vote here. Actually, you know what? Let's just put this to a whole vote to the group. I think we've got pretty simple. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Seeing none opposed, unanimous vote. And that brings us to the third recommended motion. Shane, keep going.
I move that the request to vary from section 3.4.7.3 requiring all roads within the urban area to contain a conventional curb, gutter, and boulevard sidewalk specific to White House Lane be approved with a recommendation of condition of approval.
Any seconds?
Ellie will second again.
And seconded by Ellie. Very good, thank you. And we'll just do another voice vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All those opposed? No opposition. Motion carries unanimous.
I'll move that the request to vary from section 3.4.7.3 requiring all roads within the urban area to contain a conventional curb, gutter, and boulevard sidewalk specific to Highway 200 be approved.
Any seconds?
I'll
I'll
second it.
second it. Oh no, Sierra, the new person should second.
Very good. A second from Sierra. And we'll just keep going with the voice votes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And motion carries unanimously. And our fifth and final one, am I right?
Give me a second on this one.
If anybody else has it already worked up, jump in there.
I do have kind of an idea for some draft language if you want to hear a thought on that condition 10, or the other option that I've been thinking about is you may not need to do specific language that could also, but basically have as part of your motion the intent behind it, and I can work with Joe and Dan to get some language drafted prior to the commissioners meeting. Because remember, you guys are recommending, and so there is still another motion. So that's the other thought as well, is if you want to, you know, make as part of your motion the intent behind amending that condition, and I can work on more specific language, or I can kind of give you what I've got as far as that too. Either way.
Let's hang on a second. We'll let Josh speak here. Josh?
I was just curious if we could recommend approval of the motion but subject to the conditions of approval being amended so that the approval of the encroachment permit is not required to be issued prior to the filing of the plat. Does that work?
What do you think, Bailey?
I think so. I mean, I think that gives me some room to know what you would like that condition to be amended towards, and as far as where you guys were going with it.
It's a little
so.
different, I think, than what Joe said, where it required the engineers, what was it, a quote or plan, and this just exempts the encroachment permit prior to issuing of the final plat.
And so kind of, I know Dave just stuck his hand up there. What I was basically kind of my line is really about the same as yours, Josh, is just having that condition and then like a comma at the end and just saying prior to final plat approval or as part of an approved SIA with the Board of County Commissioners is where I was kind of going as well.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Dave real quick before we settle this.
I support exactly where you're going on that. Thank you.
Great, thanks. So if it doesn't matter a lot to you, Bailey, maybe, does anybody have any strong feelings one way or another over Josh's language versus Bailey's language? Not seeing any. I think I would ask maybe Josh to make the motion, since you have kind of some language, I think, in front of you, rather than having Bailey try and put something in front of us.
in front of me. Yeah.
Well, it looked like you were reading.
Let me see if I can extract that again from where it came from. So I'll move that the Bonner West subdivision be approved based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report, and subject to the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report, with the amendment that the condition of approval not require the filing of the encroachment permit prior to the filing of the final plat.
That sounded great.
Was that correct? Close.
And I guess the only thing I would add, and maybe if you guys allow me to make this thing, is just that it's condition number 10 within it is more just specific to that condition. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll second that for condition number 10 amendment, and that number 5 as Josh read it out.
Very good. We have a second from Ellie on the motion and the amendment for condition 10. And I think we'll do a roll call vote on this one, just to make sure. And Donna, could you take that away, please?
Certainly. Josh Schrader.
Yes.
Josh Schrader votes yes. Dave Loomis.
Yes.
Dave Loomis votes yes. Sierra Farmer.
Yes.
Sierra Farmer votes yes. Toon Pham.
Yes.
Toon Pham votes yes. L.A. Costello.
Yes.
L.A. Costello votes yes. Shane Morrissey.
Yes.
Shane Morrissey votes yes. Sean McCoy.
Yes.
Sean McCoy votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
Very good. All right, folks. I think that brings us to the end of that public hearing section. I don't think we have any more under that. Let me get back to my agenda. Okay, yeah, that wraps us up with that. Thank you very much, Bailey and Dan and Mike and Joe, for all of your guys' time and attendance. Oh, I see, I'm not sure, Mike and I think it's Dan. You guys' hand was up.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Mike just wanted to add a comment real quick.
I just wanted to thank each one of you for taking time out of your evening to do this for us. And I truly appreciated the discussion, the comments, well thought out, good questions. And I truly appreciate the way you approached number 5. That was, yeah, I appreciate that. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Mike. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of that portion of the meeting. Our next agenda line item is communications and special presentations, which we do not have any of tonight. And committee reports, I believe we don't have any either, Toon. Okay, perfect. Moving right along. I don't believe we have any old business. In the pre-meeting, we talked a little bit about the 93 MDT kind of update and questionnaire, but it sounds like Josh is just getting a letter to Bailey. Josh, do you want to speak to that at all, or we just leave that on the side for now?
Yeah, I was just going to say I submitted a very rough draft to Bailey. Was it earlier today or yesterday, Bailey? I can't remember.
Yesterday, yeah.
All running together. So yeah, I threw one more thing on her plate that she got back from vacation. So it's, yeah, there's a start anyways.
Great, great. Well, and thanks to both of you for working on that. I know everybody's very busy. It's always busy. All right, so that brings us to new business, and we've got a few things to tackle here. The first one is election of officers. We are starting a new year, which means we need to elect chair and vice chair, which currently I am chair and Shane is vice chair. So we'll just start with chair. And I'll just say I'm open to staying chair for the time being. I'm here now. I'm assuming I'm going to stay on the board. The county hasn't gotten back to me, but it's my understanding they're very busy with committee appointments and whatnot. And so I think if they were going to say no, they would have told me, at least I hope. So I'm open to staying for that if folks want to nominate, and we can move through that, and then we can work on the vice chair.
I'd be happy to nominate Sean as chair.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And then we'll just put that to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I didn't say aye. Is it weird not to want to vote for myself? I'm going to abstain. How about that? All those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. I don't know how many yays and 1 abstention. Okay, so that brings us to the vice chair. Is there anybody that's got a burning desire to volunteer for the vice chair position? Not seeing any immediate hands up. I'll give you guys a second to think about it. I know it's maybe not everybody was expecting to do that or be asked about that.
Am I to assume that Shane is not going to do it?
No, I just told Shane that I would give everybody an opportunity to volunteer before I nominated him.
Dumpster fire when you're not here, Sean.
No, my guess is you did great. You covered all through hunting season and then my breakdown on the side of the highway. So, so if there's no volunteers, I'm gonna go ahead and with some previous discussion with Shane, nominate Shane Morrissey for the vice chair position. Is there any seconds?
I would hardly second that.
I didn't quite see who seconded. Seconded by Toon?
Yeah.
Great. And then we'll just do a voice vote. Shane, feel free to abstain if you like. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Vote carries. Which brings us to the next, let's see, electional officers. We got election of the Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee representative. And my hope is that Tung might be willing to continue on in that role. If not, we will need a volunteer.
Happy to keep doing it.
Great.
Be on my calendar.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you very much, Tung. So I'm gonna nominate Tung for that position. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We got a second from Dave and Josh, and we'll put that to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries or election carries. And then the last line on we had under new business was a growth commission representative, but that commission seems to be in a period of flux, and it's kind of undetermined what the makeup and the needs of that is going to be. So at the pre-meeting, we decided to go ahead and table that for the time being. And when that comes up and we have a better idea of what our involvement will be, we'll try and find a representative for that. And then that brings us to comments from the board members. If anybody's got anything to say, now's the time for general comments. I see Dave's hand up.
As usual. Yes, thank you for the members for a really good discussion on our agenda item. And thank you so much for volunteering to continue to provide leadership in the planning board. It's my pleasure to serve with you. I've been doing the planning business for a really long time, and this is a really good group, getting in a groove and really understanding the issues in Missoula Valley, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave, and here. I want to just second that. I think this board is great, and I think, some of the complaints maybe Andy has that we were a little waffly there in the beginning, but I think tonight we really showed some flexibility and a desire to be supportive of developers. So I definitely appreciate everybody's involvement and time, and I think this board is just awesome and made up of a great group of people. Anybody else want to throw some comments in, or should we get out of here?
Just welcome to Sierra.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Ellie. Definitely. Welcome to Sierra. Hope you had a good meeting. It can get contentious around here. This was a pretty straightforward one.
Yeah, thank you. No, this was great.
Good. And then, I don't know, maybe in the future we'll start, I don't know when we'll be back at City Hall, but this works for now, particularly since I'm traveling with my family. Okay, I think that brings us to adjournment, folks. If nobody's got anything, let's call it a night. Okay, thanks, staff. Thanks, Donna, Bailey. Have a good evening.